Where do I begin? My name is Nwabisa Mabuto, born and bred in Soweto. Spent most of my life at Protea North. Um, and I've been running my practice for 3 years now. Previously was in the regulatory compliance environment. And before that, I was in the medical field, still doing compliance. And then before that, in the hospitality industry.
Very cool stuff. So I will tell you, you're in conversation, Konomanje, with Musi. So Wanele is actually our station manager. Yes, but don't
I
worry, you're
do
good.
agree
You're good. So my name is Musi, and I'm together. She says that she is a mother of two sons, a sister, a cousin, and a daughter of the Mabuto family and the Ndlovu clan. Her full name being Nwabisa Regina Mabuto. Her brand Zuxho Solutions, established in Soweto and but also operating countrywide. She's a certified tax practitioner, a business accountant, and ethics officer, and a candidate financial planner. She has been self-employed for more than 3 years, and her clients range from the private security industry to legal practitioners and engineering and individuals. She assists her clients with their regulatory compliance requirements and works very closely with a black-owned brokering firm that specializes in savings and investments. Very, 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 very cool stuff. So, Mrs. Nobisa, for someone who is not aware of what the regulatory space is and what brokering is and all of the spaces that you're involved in, please take us through that very quickly, Nje, and just to try and inform someone who's watching and listening out there at home.
And what SME is, because I'm not familiar with the word. It's my first time hearing the word SME.
um, that is small, medium enterprises, businesses. That is usually looking at your startups and your businesses that have been operating for a year or more, whose revenue is well below 10 million rand. So I'll start with explaining what the regulatory compliance space is. It's just a fancy word to say that you've got the papers that confirm that your business is duly registered in South Africa and complies to the laws that are relevant to its operational environment. And the one that everybody would know about is CIPC, where you register for your business so that it receives its what simple terms I like to call its birth certificate, a document that confirms the company name and the date that it was registered and who the owners and the directors of the business are. Then there's other spaces that deal with your labor relations requirements, and that would be your Department of Labor, and most people look at COIDA and UIF. Compensation fund, COIDA, it's just an abbreviation for the compensation fund. And then you then get into various spaces depending on what type of business you are in. If you're in construction, you'd be looking at registering with the construction industry regulator. And then if you're in the private security industry, you'd be looking to register with the private security industry regulator as well. So as in, depending on what type of work you are offering, you would then register with those regulatory bodies.
I think the network might be, interrupting Unwabisa on
Hello?
his. Oh, there we go. There we go. We have you back. We lost you there for a second. Yes.
Okay, so I was saying that you would then register with the applicable or relevant regulatory body so that you can confirm to your customers that you are actually a professional and you know what you are doing in that space. So, and then that would include your tax as well, because many people do forget that there's taxes to be paid in South Africa. And yeah, I think I will stop there. Do you have any questions for me?
I'll tell you, I do. I'm finding all of this very interesting because, you've said such a mouthful, and like Omaning just said that he himself was not aware of the term SME, right? And you've shared so much with us, and very very interesting stuff. So let's try to start here. You are the founder and owner of Zuxho Solutions, right? Um, in establishing Zuxho Solutions, what gap did you see you wanted to fill, right? And in terms of SMMEs or SMEs and the landscape of SMEs, what was the inspiration or the drive behind you establishing Zuxho Solutions and then trying to fill the gap in the space of SMEs?
Thank you for that question. So, when I was growing up in Soweto, I noticed that a lot of families in Soweto would establish small businesses, what we call a maspaza shop, or other type of businesses. But then, as soon as the founders of the business pass on, the business would not be sustained, or if it was, it would be sold to a different company. And I thought, well, this is for me a gap whereby we're seeing opportunities or job opportunities being taken out of the Soweto community. And I thought, well, with the knowledge that I have, it would be a great idea to capacitate, to teach my community about the available resources and assistance that is out there to help businesses sustain the legacy that has been created. I'd like to see businesses, more businesses like Mabonya, that it starts in one aspect and then eventually grows into a shopping mall. And there's so many ways to do that. And to top that off, the biggest markets in South Africa are in townships. It is township people who go all over the country looking for goods and services that they require. But very rarely do we then bring those services back to Soweto. And with establishing Zuxho Solutions, I then wanted to assist small businesses to scale up their businesses, to sustain their businesses, and ensure that people are able to create legacies for their families.
Very, very interesting stuff. I love the fact that you say you want, our small businesses, our spaza shops, because what we've seen with the community of black-owned spaza shops in our communities, in and around our communities and our environments, it has died out. I remember growing up as a young boy, almost every other spaza shop was black-owned. But when I got to my late teenage years now, the dynamic started shifting, and the industry of spaza shops started now migrating to foreign owned national shops, right? So I love how you want to sustain and bring back that legacy essentially, and drive and essentially build the industry of black and take it back, have it back in our own communities and have it in our own hands, man. I love that so much. But I know money has something interesting.
Sis Nwabisa, a lot of small business owners underestimate the importance of compliances. Ne? Can you please explain what non-compliance can mean for an SME and how Zuxho helps that? How can prevent that?
So non-compliance happens in different ways. And the first, and I think the major non-compliance that I have seen when I engage small businesses is failure to adhere to tax laws, right? So we have African Revenue Services, where every business that is registered with the CIPC is automatically issued with an income tax number. And what this means is that as soon as you are registered, you have the obligation to submit tax returns to the South African Revenue Services, whether or not you're making money. You are allowed to submit nil returns to show SARS that though you have established your business, you have not started trading. And this means that you are complying. But the minute you fail to submit these returns, it means that you are a non-compliant business. So what does this mean? And I'll give a simple example looking at tenderpreneurs. Tenderpreneurs will have identified a tender that they want to bid for, and then they will run around last minute looking for all these documents that are listed in the tender bid. It is your tax clearance certificate, your registration, your company registration certificate, your certificate or letter of good standing from the Department of Labor, all these departments confirming that you have honored your obligation to submit the required documentation, paperwork, and paid over the funds that are due. And should you then fail to do this, then you are regarded as non-compliant. So you can be non-compliant from a tax perspective. You can be non-compliant from your company registration perspective because you have the obligation to submit a return to CIPC once a year to confirm that your business is still trading or your business is registered but not yet trading, but you still have the intention to use it. That is when you submit your nil returns. Then you have the obligation with the Department of Labor, where you also need to confirm whether or not you have employees. And when you don't have employees, you simply submit your nil returns to say that you have not started trading. And once you start trading, you then have the obligation to submit your monthly returns to confirm to SARS that you are deducting whatever funds you need to deduct from your employees in order for them one day to have an opportunity to claim from the Department of Labor or the Unemployment Insurance Fund if that circumstance arises. And secondly, in the event that somebody is hurt in your workplace, then you are able to submit a claim to the compensation fund so that they can then assist in compensating the employee for the damage or incident that has happened.
Interesting, very interesting. I'll tell you. We're learning so much. Especially as young guys and girls, who are now parents ourselves, who are in the workforce. And some of us are business owners or want to eventually find ourselves starting our own businesses. This is the kind of information that I think is very essential, and I'm sure you would concur as well, right? And in that, I'm not trying to be controversial or anything, but a huge portion or quite a large portion of our black society is not knowledgeable and informed when it comes to things of this sort, right? And we found that this information and education and knowledge has always been, kept for an elite. Right, and when years ago, when the BEE came through, and black businesses started striving, we saw now a black elite being formed as well, and they themselves keeping this information to themselves and not sharing it with the ones who are down there on the ground doing the stuff that essentially promote all these other bigger businesses, man. So I love how you try to share this information. But there's a small business owner or a small puzzle shop owner out there somewhere, Soweto, in Zola or something, and is watching and is listening to all of this information. So the kind of support that you guys offer, what is the typical engagement with a client like that, a small puzzle shop owner in Soweto, somewhere in the East Rand, Tembisa, or what is the engagement like with Zuxho Solutions? Is there anything specific that I need to bring through? Do I need to learn something before I come and engage with you? What is how do you navigate that space?
Well, I think the most important thing is that you have a business and that you have taken an intentional decision to scale up or to grow your business or to sustain your business. And you've seen opportunities in the market that you would like to exploit. And therefore, then we start by doing an assessment of whether or not your business has been complying to the minimum requirements that it is supposed to be complying with. And that is firstly in your tax, then your CIPC, and then lastly your Department of Labor. And if you are in a specific regulated industry, we then check with that industry if you have complied. And then where you have not complied, we would then sit and assist you in complying with the required standards or legislation. And if you have never registered with a required with the a regulator in the space that you're in, then we also assist you with that. And once that is done, there is now maintenance of the business. When a business starts making money, and I'll give an example of a school transport owner, once they start making enough money, that person wants to, they have goals, they have dreams. You want to buy property, whether it's for investment purposes or it's for residential purposes. If you're going to use your business to acquire those assets, the banks are going to require you to submit your compliance certificates confirming that you are a good citizen or your company is a good citizen. And added to that, then there would be a requirement for you to provide your annual financial statement, whether they are reviewed or audited, depending on the size of your business. And this documentation, then we also assist you to put it together. And then the very last leg, I think, is in now, once you have acquired the things you want to acquire, you want to create income for yourself for that period where you no longer have the physical strength to be able to operate your business and you've handed it over to your children. And what do we mean by this? If you are an employed person, you would be saving, or your employer would be assisting to save for your retirement through a retirement fund or through a pension fund or provisional a provident fund, depending on what your employer is affiliated with. And as a private business owner, you then need to create those pockets for yourself. What happens when you are incapacitated? When you are sick and need to be hospitalized for a long period, what will happen to your income? What will happen to your business? How will you pay for your bills? Those are the type of conversations then we start having with the people that are our clients, because we want people to be able to live off their hard labor. That is all that we're basically assisting you with. And then you introduce your then descendants into the business so that they too can run the business and, who knows, grow it into a multinational or global company one day.
Very, very cool stuff. I love, I can feel the passion coming from you. And, I think it would have been even more better to have you right here in studio with us physically, man. But I love all this information you're giving, because I'm sure everyone else who's listening and watching is learning so much, even people in studio here are nodding along with me, saying these are some of the things that we were not aware of, because we tend to think that, and we always hear that opening a business is so cheap, man. It's 100 and something. Quickly open a business and say you are the owner, and but we are not aware that there's so much more that comes into play behind owning a business, that for instance, what you just mentioned in terms of registering your descendants, who can hopefully grow it into something even bigger than what you initially did it into, so very, very cool stuff. I know Umaning also has something else he wants to find out from you.
Yeah, I want us to talk about the personal information verification, right? Why is this so critical for businesses today, especially in the light of data protection laws?
So personal information verification is important. One, if you remember, in South Africa some time ago, South Africa was grey listed. And what that means is that there were transactions that were identified in South Africa to be potentially funding terrorist activities. And because we had not all companies in South Africa had been verifying the data or the personal information that they are transacting with, it was difficult to prove that whether or not the statement was correct. And now South Africa, because we're part of a global player, has then taken a decision to comply with these requirements, to ensure that I know that if I say I'm trading with Banele, it is actually Banele that I'm trading with. It is not somebody who is pretending to be Banele, but a member of a terrorist group outside of South Africa. And if you look at all the conversations that are taking place around the world, if you do not know who you're trading with, how do you then prove that the money that you are trading with is not going to fund a terrorist activity that could potentially one day end up putting South Africa in trouble? So you need to know that Ubanele is actually Ubanele. It is not somebody else who has stolen Banele's identity and therefore using it to extract money from your business or from South Africa and channel it to another part of the world for illegal activity. Secondly, that the business is actually owned by Ubanele. So VUCA, let's say VUCA is owned by Anele, then VUCA is actually owned by Banele. It is not owned by somebody else, and Banele is simply taken hostage of the business. Sorry, Banele, I'm just using you as an example. I hope you will not be offended by my examples. So personal information verification is important to know and identify who you are dealing with. And secondly, to protect you and the people that you're transacting with, that they are the rightful owners of the information that they are receiving. And remember, the Protection of Information Act does require everybody, to businesses especially, to ensure that the information that they have on their system is the most relevant and correct and accurate information about the party they purport to be trading with.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. These are some of the things that, like I said, we need to know, especially, and like I said, this is not me trying to be controversial or anything, but the truth of the matter is a huge large of our black society, a huge portion of our black society is not knowledgeable when it comes to things like these. Already we have a comment coming through on Facebook wanting to know that, and the person is saying the documentation needed when doing tax returns, when you have missed the deadline. Does Zuxho Solutions help with that?
Sure, that question is ambiguous, but I'll try to answer it the best way I can. Remember, as a business owner or an individual, you are obligated to keep your documentation. And what is meant by documentation? Let's say you have been running your spaza shop selling bread to your community. The receipts that you get from your suppliers, people you buy your bread from, are supporting documents that are required. The payments that you make to the third parties, that is supporting documentation. Evidence that this is the person that you are dealing with, that you need to have in case there is a need or there is a dispute raised by SARS that no, this information is inaccurate or incorrect. So you have to maintain documentation, that is supporting the business that you are doing. Then your bank statements confirm the transactions that have taken place in your business if you run your transactions via your bank account, or cash receipts that you would have kept in your house or in your shop to confirm the transactions that have taken place. And you'd most probably then have to deposit the money into the bank account at some point. So that is the basic documentation that's required. But remember, in terms of the South African, of the tax legislation and regulations, you also need to confirm that you are the rightful owner or representative of the business that you are running. So SARS would have then given you, an opportunity to register yourself as the owner of your business. Failing which, you will not have access to your electronic filing profile at SARS because you have not yet confirmed who the owner of the business is. So all that information resides with you. What we do most of the time is help people collate that information and put it together in a manner that will make it easy for SARS to understand who the owner is, what the transactions were, whether or not the business made a profit, and whether or not the business owes SARS or SARS owes the business. There's various pieces um, of relief that are provided in tax legislation for small business owners to ensure that they do not drown in financial burden of the tax requirements. And we then help you to structure your transactions so that you can use those requirements for your benefit, for the sustainability of your business. Every business owner wants to make a profit and keep it for either saving or spending, depending on what your priorities are. And this is what we assist you
Mm, I hope Ace Wang has been answered because I think they are asking these questions being a fashion house themselves. We had them here in the studio, so I think the question is aimed at trying to find out that as a business, as a fashion house, people who specialize in branded clothing and custom clothing, how can they stay ahead of all of these compliances that businesses have to adhere to on a day-to-day basis as they run their businesses. So you've said such a mouthful. And quickly in closure, we are living in such a technologically influenced world now, and we see it from a young age, where from a early childhood development, now kids are being introduced to computerized way of thinking and figuring out and solving problems, right? As a business that has been there for less than 5 years now, I'm assuming, because it says here you've been self-employed for the past 3 years now, but you are someone who wears so many hats within the space of finances and the sub I guess how would I put it? Sub careers that come within the financial space. How do you then, as Nwabisa and as Zuxho Solutions, stay up to date with all of these advances that are taking place technologically? So to make sure that all your clients curve, and ensure that they or themselves as businesses and as individuals stay up to date.
Well, I think from my professional standing point of view, I am affiliated with the various professional bodies, as you have read earlier on, the South African Institute of Taxation, the Chartered Institute of Bookkeepers and Accountants, and the Ethics Institute of South Africa. So there's ongoing training that I have to ensure that I comply with on a yearly basis. But over and above that, as somebody who's interested in technology, I often equip myself with the latest developments around the world by doing short courses at various institutions inside and outside of South Africa. And with that information, I'm able to share then with my clients and help them run their businesses running the latest technology. Example is when we offer you bookkeeping or accounting services, we then ensure that your transactions are then automated. It makes it easier for us to be able to give you live information compared to delayed management accounts that could potentially have an impact on whether or not you're able to successfully transact, get credit facilities, acquire assets, and so forth. So there's electronic tools that we will register you with that will help you run and manage your business. Remember, there's the accounting side of your business, there's the human resource part of your business where some companies need to keep time track of their employees. And then there is also the, what now? There's also stock take, where you buy stock and you want to know, especially when you want to know how much it actually costs you, as an example, for a fashion designer to produce a garment. You want to know how much you would have spent on your material, how much did you use to produce a particular garment, how many hours of labor was all of that, what electricity, water, utilities you have used, including rental if you're renting a space, so that you can come up with a cost model that at minimum, this is what you need to be pricing your goods or your garments, your outfits, so that you can sell them and either make a profit or just break even depending on where, how long your business has been running.
Very interesting, Manning. We're
Very
learning.
interesting. It's true when they say you're never too old to learn, you know. So, Sis Nwabisa, I just want to know, in your view, what's the biggest misconception as SMEs have about compliances and regulations?
Firstly, I think people believe that it is a difficult, what is it, a difficult target to achieve. One, please, everybody should be aware. In South Africa, most departments are now automating their activities. What this means, it is now easier to comply today than it was 10, 20 years ago, because everything can be done online. You can engage with SARS online. You can engage with the Department of Labor online. You can engage with the regulatory authorities online. So therefore, it's an easier act to perform. Some regulatory requirements are once off. Others are on a monthly basis. And this we're looking if you've got employees and you need to pay over their taxes, which then is put together with your UIF. But most regulatory activity happens once a year, unless there is a national bargaining council for your employees where you need to contribute on a monthly basis for their retirement, for their medical insurance, and what else? Yes, and their professional membership fees. So it is easier today than it was many years ago. It is cheaper today than when it was many years ago. That time where people have to pay somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who can fast track something, it is quickly dying out in South Africa.
I love that. I love that. Trying to break all these misconceptions that we have. This you are sharing so much, and I feel like if we were in studio, we would be giving so much more information. But I love it, and hopefully, God willing, in the future, we can have you here in studio and share more, because I'm sure that there's so much more that you would want to teach and educate everyone who's listening and watching when it comes to all things, financial education and financial literacy. Lastly, let's talk about Zuxho Solutions. 3 years in now, is there anything else that we're looking forward to? Is there anything else that someone who is looking to work with you and get your services? What can we look forward to? What is next for Zuxho Solutions?
I think the most exciting part about being in the space that I'm in, there's always an opportunity to grow. There's always collaboration with different people in different spaces. I think our next big thing now is property investment, with so many properties in townships, to deal and help people deal with that. When you drive around in Soweto and you see houses written not for sale, to those people, there is an alternative. And as a family, instead of fighting over those properties, there's different ways of dealing with it, such that everybody in the family benefits. So that property investment, property management space is something that Zuxho Solutions is starting to invest in.
I love it. I love it. Very, very, very cool stuff. Sis Nwabisa, thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time to educate us and teach us and shed so much light, in the space of, or rather with regards to the space of financial education and financial literacy. So very quickly, in closing, any advice that you can offer someone who's listening and watching and wants to find out more, firstly, about the space of finances, and secondly, about Zuxho Solutions?
Zuxho Solutions has a website, www.zuxhosolutions.com. You can contact us. You can find us on Instagram as well. And if you have any direct information that you require, you can email us directly. And my email address is nwabisa@zuxhosolutions.com.
Nwabisa at zuxhosolutions.com. You mentioned that on social media, you guys are Zuxho Solutions, right?
Everywhere you will find us at Zuxho Solutions. It is a registered trademark. No one else in South Africa owns this trademark. And therefore, if you just simply type Zuxho Solutions, our different aspects of the business should pop up.
And then is there a number that perhaps one can send a WhatsApp on or give a phone call to?
You can send us a WhatsApp on 071 210 9258.
Please repeat the number one more time.
071 210 9258.
Cool and amazing stuff and very educational, Manenge. I'm sure that you and I, and of course everyone else who's listening and watching, has learned so much from Usis Nwabisa Mabuto. Someone who has so much information and knowledge and has a career that spans for over 15 years, in things like tax practicing, as a business accountant, an ethics officer, and of course a candidate financial planner. She's someone who is amazing and great, and hopefully, you who is listening and watching at home or from anywhere else you are tuned in from, you have learned so much and taken quite a lot of information for yourself and knowledge, of course, that you can move forward with and try to make better your business and, of course, your own personal finances. Money. I don't know